Introduction to Emotional Intelligence. Emotions can get in the way, or get you on the way. Mavis, Missouri. What it is, and why you need more of it. EQ. This is the common abbreviation for emotional intelligence. EQ is a personal skill and not to be confused with IQ or your so-called intelligence quotient. EQ is measured in a much different way, as we will see in these pages. Although a case can be made that both IQ and EQ are subjective, most of us agree that IQ ends up as a number about someone's intelligence, whereas EQ ends up as an overall feeling and connection we have with an individual. As EQ becomes better appreciated, large corporations are looking more frequently and openly for high EQ individuals, whatever their IQ. That is because people with strong EQs perform better in terms of pure efficiency and effectiveness and in human interactive terms. So what is this thing we call EQ? To some degree, we all have EQ. Some of us naturally have more than others. Any individual can consciously develop more of it. How we see the world, react to it, and behave in it with other people is emotion-based. In a nutshell, having a high EQ or a good EQ means that you are someone who understands what makes a human being tick, from an emotional and reactive standpoint. You are an individual who understands that we all see the world through eyeglasses clouded by feelings and emotions. You are able and willing as a high EQ person to adapt your own feelings and reactions to harmonize with those of others, or to position the situation for a better outcome for everyone involved. Whew, sounds complicated. But again, rest assured that we all have some degree of EQ. We are born with it. We are all natural observers. We can all position ourselves to create better outcomes in situations that might otherwise go sour. The catch is that we don't all have a full awareness of our EQ and how to use it effectively in all our interactions. Emotional intelligence has been much discussed, at least since the mid-1990s. It was a book by Daniel Goleman of the same name that started everyone buzzing about EQ. Let's simplify a bit. Emotional intelligence is, I believe, a three-part personal skill and is much, much more than just positive mindset. First of all, it is your non-judgmental recognition and awareness of your own emotions and feelings and those of other individuals. It requires you only to pay attention, to observe. It is, secondly, your personal ability to control and express your own feelings in appropriate ways for the circumstances. And we all live in a variety of different circumstances. It requires some personal discipline. Thirdly, it is your ability to register what others' emotions may be as you interact with them, to acknowledge those feelings, and to self-manage your own emotions in order to create a harmonious exchange with those people. It requires your will to act according to facts and observation, not your emotions. EQ is about business. It was people in business who were the first ones to see the benefits of paying attention to their levels and usages of EQ. Emotional intelligence is a personal skill set, and the most effective, successful, and respected managers, leaders, business owners, salespeople, politicians, and influencers have a high degree of this skill. If salespeople were among the first professionals to realize that personal development was the best way to create more and easier business success, and a higher personal income because of more sales, others in business have imitated them, and improving their EQ is at the top of the personal development training that they do. Business people indeed perked up when they heard about EQ. They are always looking for an edge over the competition, an edge in their internal effectiveness in people management, and an edge in time management. Their thinking is that every tiny bit of advantage expands exponentially into bigger end results. And they are right. Developing more EQ for yourself is not reserved today only for business people, naturally. Any individual can train him or herself into a higher level of EQ. Why you would do that is for the many benefits that you reap by doing so. EQ is about life. Would it be wise for all of us to recognize that we need more of this EQ quality? Undoubtedly. As the saying goes, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Getting along better with a worried spouse, a rebellious teenager, a sick grandparent, a difficult neighbor, or a mean clerk at the store down the street, that all becomes easier for people with a developed EQ. In our life and living, we have relationships of many types. Relationships can be subject to misunderstandings, grumpiness, jealousy, or envy, and all sorts of other obstacles to simply getting along well. Connecting meaningfully with others and expressing your harmony and love together gets to be a challenge without high EQ. When we learn how to take feelings and emotions into account for ourselves as well as for the other person and act from our own knowledge, relationships just flow more smoothly. Everyone is simply happier. Perhaps you have already noticed, maybe in observing prominent individuals covered in the media, that the better the EQ, the better all relationships and personal interactions are too. Or maybe it is still pretty mysterious to you how to achieve this. Don't worry, you'll get some guidance in the next few pages. There are countless benefits to being able to create more harmonious, smoother, and more effective relationships. I think everyone would agree. Everyone on this planet has relationships with other individuals. Why not make them the happiest, most harmonious, and mutually satisfying that we can? That is why EQ is so popular. How to use this book. Developing your EQ is experiential. That just means you have to do it to learn it. There are a number of exercises in the following pages. Certainly not all the EQ exercises that teachers have used over the years, but enough to get you seriously on your way to a higher EQ. Do the exercises. Chapter 1. No Denial Allowed in EQ. I can tell you this right now. You won't like all your feelings. You can laugh as you read that, but it is time for a reality check about feelings. The fact is that all human beings have an oversupply of feelings, males and females, youngsters and elders, rich and poor, first world country dweller or third world resident, leader or follower. We all have feelings, lots and lots of them. Not all of these feelings are pleasant to carry around. Some are downright ugly when they get out of control and interfere with any of our relationships, and this means the relationship you have with yourself as well as with others. You might only be carrying around those awful feelings inside yourself, keeping them locked down tight, not expressing them outwardly. But that doesn't mean you're having a good time holding them inside. Keeping unwanted feelings under lock and key is hard work and takes a lot of energy. Other times, those terrible feelings break loose and rip through your words and actions during a face-to-face exchange with someone. And then, well, everything seems to quickly deteriorate. Not fun. If you are serious about developing a higher level of emotional intelligence, you can no longer be in denial about your anger problem or your insecurity issues, your panic attacks or your defensive reactions. These are all driven by emotions, and unpleasant ones at that. These types of issues interfere with your relationship with others. They may sabotage them entirely. These emotions insidiously interfere with your personal happiness and your sense of well-being out in the world. If you are to fix things, you have to acknowledge that you have these specific feelings. You have to acknowledge that they express themselves as behaviors, words, and actions. Denial of this truth is not allowed. That's the bad news. The good news is that you can do something about those unpleasant feelings. You can not only do something about it, you can turn things around completely. You'll see how in the next pages. You can do something about the unpleasant ones, and an exuberance of the nicer ones as appropriate. for one simple reason. These are your feelings, and you are the boss of them. Pleasant or unpleasant feelings, wanted or unwanted, whichever they are, you still have the ability to deal with them or even eliminate them. There are ways, as you will now see, to do so. Self-awareness first. So, no more denial. If you are on a path to developing more EQ for yourself, you must face this raw fact. Some of your feelings will be unpleasant or downright ugly to deal with. If you hate them, think about those who are attacked by them when you explode. Your first step on the path to higher EQ is self-awareness. It's about acknowledging what is. If you have out-of-control anger problems, that is what is. Acknowledging this allows you to move into remedial actions. EQ means you first work at understanding how you tick, or you can never hope to better understand others. Let's just look at what self-awareness actually is. When your physical body has a pain, you become aware of it pretty quickly. The pain is calling out for your attention. That is pain's function. When you notice it, you become aware. This awareness allows you to take appropriate healing actions. This is one form of self-awareness. No one else can feel what's going on in your physical body. Another form of awareness is conscious information about the type of individual you are. Not all of us are clear about the type of personality or character that we operate from. For instance, we may be aware that we are a boisterous and loud, life-of-the-party type of person, or a quiet wallflower who prefers to stay out of sight and operate only from behind the scenes. We may not be aware that people think we are tactless or abrasive. When you accurately identify your personality traits, you have self-awareness. From there, you can choose, or not, to take actions to change things. The form of self-awareness we are speaking of in these pages is about the type of feelings that are stored inside you. Those feelings are probably visible to any attentive outside observer. For instance, others easily detect your shyness, your impatience, your disapproval, your sadness, your anger, or frustration. Others are aware of these feelings within you. Now it is time for you to become fully self-aware of those feelings and make a decision about them. The decision is this: are they beneficial to you in all of your relationships and interactions, or not? To develop greater self-awareness of the feelings that are already within you, follow the exercises below. A number of personal growth trainers use emotions charts of some form to help their trainees become more familiar with the vast range of feelings that humans deploy or store. We all deploy some of our feelings as a natural course of living. Most of those feelings are readily identifiable by us if we think a little bit about it. That means that we are conscious of them. They are part of our conscious mind and behaviors. We stuff down or store many other emotions in a sort of vault that psychologists call the subconscious mind. EQ trainers will perhaps also help you recognize how some feelings are heavier than others. For instance, deep apathy or depression seem to literally pin us to the sofa because they make us feel so heavy. We feel unwilling to take any action whatsoever. We cannot move. Other feelings are lighter. These are feelings that energize us, such as joy, love, elation, and self-confidence. We are willing to jump up and do things when these feelings prevail. Self-awareness exercises. Before I list exercises that help you develop your emotional self-awareness, beware. Do not be deceived by their simplicity. Most people will not do this introspective, experiential work on themselves. They will blow it off as silly or ineffective. Don't make that mistake. Emotionally intelligent individuals understand that feelings are really quite simple. Understanding feelings becomes easier, and very quickly too, with these exercises. Do the exercises every day. You may need to do them every day for several months, most people with even a developed EQ keep on high alert for feelings all the time. Aim for 7 straight days of practice, then add a week, then another. Don't get discouraged. Change is cumulative. Keep a small notebook in your pocket or purse. You can buy them at any local store. 1. Find a pre-made list of human emotions. You may find one in a book and photocopy it. You can Google chart of emotions or list of feelings or inventory of feelings. Print it out. Fold the printout into your notebook. Use the printout to regularly review and get familiar with all the feelings listed. Read each individual emotion and ask yourself the questions, how do I express this feeling? When am I moved to express it? Answer honestly. Place a check mark next to each feeling word you have examined in this way. 2. For this exercise, you will be observing and noting down the feelings that you personally experience throughout the day and the circumstance. A. Use your notebook. No need to do anything about the feeling. Just name it and write it down. Keep a running list for the entire day. Your entry might sound something like this. May 3rd. Panic, late for work. Frustration, meeting with my assistant. Jealous/envy. Coworker got a compliment from the boss. Apathy, need to meet that deadline. B. After 1 week, and certainly after 1 month of making these notes, review everything to date. Look for patterns. A pattern is any feeling that recurs, an emotion that you experience several or many times. You feel exhilarated 4 times, and in quite different circumstances each time. You feel frustrated 8 times, but notice that a single trigger set off 6 of those times, and so on. Patterns. You will probably not experience a single and continuous emotional state from morning to night. No one does. You will notice patterns that create your emotional ebb and flow. You will be able to discern a pattern, perhaps, about the type of feelings you have in the morning versus those of the afternoon or the evening. Remember what we said about the heavy energy versus light energy of our emotions. You might try to find a pattern concerning your heavier emotions like sadness, indifference, or fear. Do you mostly experience those late at night or in a 4 p.m. slump? Likewise, try to find a pattern concerning your lighter emotions like enthusiasm or excitement, affection, self-confidence, so on. Is there a time of day that you are particularly light in this way? Don't be disappointed if you don't find hard and fast patterns. Your goal is to develop awareness of your own emotions and how they flow from you from morning to night. Your goal is to identify the emotions that you experience throughout a day. 3. For this exercise, keep your notebook at your bedside. Your job is to identify and write down the very first feeling you experience every morning. This is the very first one you have before rolling out of bed. Again, after 1 week, and certainly after 1 month, you will notice patterns in your emotional state upon waking. Some people will notice that they are grumpy 8 mornings out of 10 as they roll out of bed. Others will roll out of bed 6 of 10 days with a feeling of exuberance for the day to come. In both cases, you now use that information to understand yourself better, to develop better self-awareness of your emotions and when they are likely to occur. After all, if you can predict when they will pop up, you can take preventive action. 4. Each time you change activities in your day, write down the feeling you have about starting that new activity. Just write, for instance, lunch appointment with prospect, feeling hungry, nervous. Drive to client office, feeling excited, confident. Remember that hunger, thirst, sleepiness are feelings too. We say, I feel hungry, tired, thirsty, sleepy, drowsy, don't we? Before EQ, after EQ. Jean had occasionally been accused of being grumpy to coworkers in the afternoons, so when she looked at her chart of emotions and began reviewing it to determine how she expressed every emotion, she got a surprise. She was only grumpy in the afternoons because she was so sleepy and hungry. She felt groggy and drowsy due to her hunger. Her before approach was to ignore and shove aside her sleepiness and her hunger, but it turned into grumpiness instead. This self-knowledge led to her eating a light but nourishing lunch every day instead of having a cup of coffee or soda. No more sleepiness. People stopped accusing her of being grumpy because she was no longer compensating in that way. Peter, on the other hand, shoved this exercise aside when he got to the word anger. He was quite aware of his anger issue. So was his wife, his boss, and he acknowledged with a lump of grief in his throat, so were his children. His anger made him interrupt the chart of emotions exercise. What he wanted to know was, firstly, what caused this anger and his outbursts when it overwhelmed him. The cause of his anger had always mystified him. Secondly, he just wanted to know how to get rid of it. His after story comes at the end of the next chapter. So read on. Chapter 2. No Feeling is Eternal, or EQ Evolves. No destructive or unwanted feeling need sabotage you forever. You may sigh with relief. Letting go of feelings and emotions that do not serve your growth or your relationships is possible. In spite of what might seem true at any given moment, feelings do indeed come and go. No feeling is really permanent. Do you want proof? Go to the park. Look at little children in the playground. One minute they're laughing hilariously together, and the next minute one or more of them is crying. But give them one more minute, and they're playing harmoniously again with the same little friends. Be as little children. Surely there's a saying about that, because that is what emotionally intelligent people do. They notice the feeling, let it go, and move on. They imitate the children and let the unwanted feelings go right away. No dwelling on them. Let them go and return to your real job in life of having fun playing. I'm sure there's a therapist somewhere who has measured how long the average feeling lasts. Feelings can be fleeting or seem to stick with us endlessly. You will soon see that there are easy ways to let go of virtually every feeling that you identify. You can release emotions, whether unpleasant and sabotaging in your relationships or just annoying or limiting to you personally. You will see some easy exercises to do anywhere to achieve this. The important part to understand is that you have control. You have a choice about what to do. Choice number 1. You could hang on to that negative or unpleasant feeling, mull it over, rehash it, bring it back out when you retell the story that created that feeling and go on and on about it. You could go on for years that way. It is commonly called holding a grudge or being obsessed. In a very real sense, that is a conscious choice that you are making for yourself. However, that is not how to become emotionally intelligent. Choice number 2. A better, emotionally intelligent choice to make would be to learn how to identify and let go of that feeling on the spot. See it, let it go, move on. As your EQ grows, you subtly start to behave differently. In my experience, it will be other people noticing this about you before you do. You will perhaps have greater self-confidence, where before you were a shy wallflower, not daring to speak up. Or you will possibly be noticeably quieter or calmer in group settings, where before you were boisterous or often interrupted everybody. Whatever your before personality, those around you will start noticing an after version of you, and it will be complimentary. Dissipate like clouds. To get a different perspective on how feelings are really fleeting or temporary, let's look at anger and decision-making. We are all pretty familiar with comments like, "Don't decide anything until you calm down." It is well known that it's hard to think straight when anger is controlling our every move and action. Indeed, many of us have heard angry individuals themselves state, "I can't think straight. I can't think straight." This definitely frustrates them. The advice about not making any decisions until the anger has passed acknowledges that our mental capacity to analyze, sort through information, and come to a weighted decision cannot occur when anger is clouding our mind. It also acknowledges that the anger feeling will pass. Anger is a cloud that passes, just like those clouds in the sky blow on through or dissipate. It is not just this strong feeling we call anger that clouds our ability to think. Strong feelings of jealousy do the same. Feelings of panic and fear likewise lock up our brains. Burning feelings of lust and craving for something lock out thoughts of everything but the object of our lust too. To get along more happily in all the circumstances of our lives, it just makes sense to be able to identify those sabotaging, mind-blocking feelings and control them. Notice that I do not say manage them. To many teachers dealing with emotional intelligence, managing a feeling or emotion simply means stuffing it down and ignoring it. You don't want to stuff it down. You want to eliminate it. Don't ignore it for one very good reason. It will come back to haunt you sometime in your future. Sooner or later, you'll have to deal with it. Why not now? You don't want it in your repertoire of feelings anymore. Not if it sabotages you in this awful way. In the previous chapter, you practiced identifying different feelings as you experience them. You likewise looked at the charts of feelings, assuming that you have experienced each of them, and looked for how you have expressed them in the past. This all goes to awareness of your feelings. It comes from honest introspection. Many of us have a routine way we express our feelings. These are the patterns you are starting to notice in yourself. Some teachers and therapists call these patterns triggers. But it doesn't matter what you call them. It's important that you are aware of them in yourself. Knowing that emotions are not permanent, that they are mobile or movable, gives you power and control. Once you identify and become aware of those feelings, you can learn how to let them go. Once they are gone, they no longer sabotage you, and you have all your mental faculties back. In times of crisis, you no longer freeze up. In times of stress, you are totally present and in charge. When others need you, there you are, fully available. That is the goal, and those are some of the other benefits of strong emotional intelligence. I have stated several times that you have control over your feelings. That control includes being able to let go of feelings at will. Here is a twofold way that the best mental health professionals teach their patients to let go of overwhelming feelings. It is very easy to do. You just have to remember to do it. You can do it anywhere, because no one will see you do it. Once you learn the two processes, all you need to do is practice it at the very moment a strong feeling arises within you. Exercises. 1. Mental picture release. Let's call the first exercise a mental picture release. Where are the emotions in such an exercise? They are embedded in the picture. A majority of people see pictures in their mind's eye, and if you don't worry. The next exercise will help you out immensely. The problem with pictures on a mental movie screen is that most people just hang on to them, or return to them, or the pictures themselves seem to return unbidden. When the pictures represent memories that are unpleasant, sabotaging, or simply have you spinning in your mind so that you cannot focus on anything else, it's time to do this mental picture release. The feelings embedded in such pictures are responsible for pinning them in your mind. Those feelings are like glue. You can let that glue dissolve. You can let that glue called feelings go, right along with the picture. First, because this is practice, call to mind a situation with other people that did not go well for you personally. Perhaps it was some discussion in a business meeting. Perhaps a conversation with a teenage child of yours that ended in yelling and doors slamming. Just remember a situation that did not go well for you. Next, revisit that situation as pictures in your mind. See the expressions on the faces of other people. Remember their body language and visualize it. See where the event took place. Now look at that situation and try to identify the one or two dominant emotions embedded in that story. It is those emotions that keep your mind returning to this picture of this situation that didn't go so well. To release the whole thing, the visual pictures as well as the feelings embedded in them, see the picture framed as if on a TV screen or a movie screen. You are the film projectionist, and you have a control panel that allows you to fade out the pictures on your screen. You have one dial on your console that does that for you. Turn the dial on the console to gradually fade out the picture on that movie screen of your mind. Fade the picture away a little more. Dissolve that picture a little more. Turn that dial down and just tell the picture that you are fading it completely off the screen right now. You are done when the screen of your mind is blank. There are different versions of this release, which I list here. Choose one that works for you. Shine a spotlight on the screen so that the images cannot be seen behind the brightness. Imagine a different button on your control panel that makes the image blurry. Keep making the image blurrier and blurrier until it's a gray, fuzzy mass that you just drop off the bottom of the screen. If your image is in color, imagine you have a dial on your control panel that drains the picture of its colors and turns it into black and white. It keeps on blending the black and white until they become gray. Then just let the gray mass drip off the bottom of your screen. Imagine your image is a huge old-style black chalkboard. Just take an enormous eraser and erase the picture top to bottom and side to side until the chalkboard is blank. You are a fireman, and the image in your mind is on fire. You point your pressure hose at the image until the whole fire is doused, and you can't see any part of it anymore. Note, it has been the experience of all practitioners of this mental picture release that doing it once is never enough. Most people need to repeat the exercise 6 or 8 more times before that specific mental picture no longer can form in their mind. So how do you do that? Just command your mind to give you that exact same picture again. Remember, you are the boss of all of your feelings. You also have control over these mental pictures. Your mind must give you the picture if it is still stored somewhere inside you. The mind will attempt to recreate the exact same picture for you. Please be aware that as you do the releasement of the picture and its embedded feelings, the picture itself will morph, shift, and change. That is, parts of it have been let go, but not all of it. Take what you get on that movie screen of your mind and release what you see. You just call the picture up again and do the letting go or releasement of it until the screen is blank. You call the picture up one more time, do the releasement until the screen is blank, and again as many times as needed until the mind is incapable of giving you that picture and your mental screen remains blank. The natural conclusion of this release is when your mental screen remains blank, when your mind can no longer give you that specific image, you are completely free of that picture and all the feelings embedded in it. 2. Body-based feeling release. The second simple exercise for letting go of feelings is not focused mentally, but in your physical body. When you become aware of feelings that have collected somewhere in your body, this is the exercise you use to permanently let them go. Right now, think of a situation in your life that worries you. It doesn't matter if you see a mental image or not for this releasement exercise. Just think of something that worries you. It could be in relation to another person or a circumstance in your life. As you hold this worrisome circumstance in mind, bring your internal awareness to your physical body. Do you notice any tightness, grabbing, or cramping anywhere in your throat or your chest, or maybe your solar plexus or abs? Take a moment right now to notice this before you read on. Find the place in your body that has this new tightness or cramping. When you have located this tightness in your body, Congratulations! That tightness or cramping feeling that collected in your throat or your chest somewhere or in your gut is your feeling of worry. The beauty of doing this type of release of feelings is that we are so very aware of what's going on in our bodies. We have a very intimate relationship with our body, if you think about it. We know its every quirk, discomfort, and pain. That is how it is so easy to locate our feelings. That is how, as you will now see, it is so easy to let them go. Here is how to let go of this feeling that you have noticed in your body, in the specific collection of tightness or cramping in one part of your body. Think again right now about that thing that worries you. Just to familiarize yourself with the process, place one hand over the area on your body where the feeling has collected as a tightness or cramping. This means you will put your hand over your throat, on your chest, or over your gut. Really, it could be anywhere on your body. Some people experience it behind the eyes or in the jaw. Just notice and put your hand over the cramping area. This will focus your inner attention. Now, in your mind's eye, imagine a door or a window over that cramping. Open the door or window. Mentally invite that cramping feeling, in this case your worry feeling, to escape or float out the opening you have made. Just allow it to leave. Just assume that it does leave. And in your mind's eye, watch it leave. Keep on telling it to leave until you feel no more cramping, pressure, or tightness in that area of the body. That is how you know you have completed the release of the feeling. Remember that you are in charge. You have total control over your feelings, and they must do as you say. Even inviting them to leave through the opening is a command to them. They must obey it. So watch the feeling leave out of that door until you don't feel any more cramping or tightness in that part of your body. That's it. This process may take 30 seconds or 3 minutes. It depends how focused you are. It depends how strong the feeling actually is when you begin. But remember that you are the boss of your feelings, and they must do as you tell them to. Making the opening over the cramping area just facilitates them all paying your orders. Seriously simple. The beauty of the mental picture release and the body-based release is this. They are simple, discreet, no one sees you doing them, and effective ways to get totally free of unwanted feelings. The former takes away the recurring visualization of unpleasant circumstances as well as all of the feelings embedded within it. The latter acknowledges the feeling and removes it on the spot. U.S. Veterans Hospital mental health professionals sometimes teach this process to military returning from active war zones. It is just one part of some PTSD treatments. Needless to say, it is very effective. More than one war veteran has said about both of the exercises in this chapter that they have allowed them to stop looking over their shoulder. No small compliment for such an easy pair of exercises. If that is not validation enough, monks and nuns in Buddhist temples and Indian ashrams have been doing this pair of releasement exercises literally for centuries to great effect. They developed self-awareness, certainly, but also create a quiet, peaceful mind and body which are free of unwanted feelings and mental pictures. Before EQ, after EQ. Let's go back to check on Peter from the previous chapter, who had no difficulty identifying his feelings of anger. In this chapter and its exercises, he was still a bit frustrated that there was no explanation to help him find the cause of his anger. He realized in the end that he never needed to know how, when, and where it started. He went ahead and did the body-based release of his anger. His anger always built up to explosion level within 10 minutes of waking up every day, so that is when he began to do the release exercises. First thing upon waking, when he felt the anger start to rise up. Then, any time during the morning when the feeling threatened, he did the exercises again. Afternoon, evening, before bed, he was relentless. He did it over and over again any time the anger reared its ugly head. After 10 days of doing the body-based exercise with his feeling of anger, something interesting happened. After breakfast one morning, his wife broke down in tears. Long story short, the day before, Peter had had no instances of anger, not verbal, not physical, with her or the children. None. For 3 mornings in a row, including this morning, Peter had not displayed any of the usual build-up to anger as before. She was actually crying in relief and hope. It was then that he revealed the exercises he had been doing. Craig was a Vietnam veteran. His body came back whole and sound, but as he said, "My mind, not so much." Decades later, he was still carrying pictures of his devastating experiences around with him in his head. What interested him about the mental picture release was that he could also let go of the body-based feelings that came up every time he saw the pictures. Those feelings were a bundle of fear, stress, shame, anger, grief, and more. Once he learned both releases, he applied them both to his mental war pictures. He consciously sat 3 or 4 times each day after learning these releases and told his mind to bring up the pictures. He would just sit and do the releases for 15 or 30 minutes, whatever it took. About 2 weeks later, his comments included this: "I've got my life back." When the pictures came up, he knew what to do. When he got the cramping or clutching in his chest or throat, he knew what to do. Soon, all of those devastating emotional war pictures in his head were gone, along with the body-based feelings they stirred up. Chapter 3: Personal Responsibility for Your EQ. 75% of careers are derailed for reasons related to emotional competencies, including inability to handle interpersonal problems, unsatisfactory team leadership during times of difficulty or conflict, or inability to adapt to change or elicit trust. From the Center for Creative Leadership. The best self-growth trainers and teachers know at least one method of releasement for unwanted emotions. You now know 2 methods for dealing with feelings. Teachers call it by different names: releasement, releasing, letting go, dumping, trashing, kicking out, cutting loose, tapping it out, setting it free, and on and on. These teachers understand the importance of positive EQ, and that we are just better off when those undesirable feelings are permanently gone. Remember that you are the boss of your feelings, whether that feeling is exuberant ecstasy or deep depression. What very few people realize, even those who have done a great deal of personal growth training, is that your feelings are at your command, quite literally. When you command a feeling to let you go, in other words, it must go. Sounds easy. So what's the rub with it? We get lazy about taking charge of our feelings. You have to do change work yourself. No denial. No waiting till tomorrow, when it was this morning that you had that blowout with your spouse. All of these experiential exercises can be done on the spot, and no one will be the wiser that you are doing it. If smokers leave the room or the building to take a smoking break, you also can take a feeling releasement break. If those who drink a gallon of water at their desks every day need to take a break to go to the restroom periodically, you also can take a rest to do some releasing of those unwanted feelings. It is your personal responsibility to make room for that break in your day. It's all about how badly you want to fix things. No one can let go in your place of that feeling of frustration you had during your business meeting. Take the time and let it go. You may certainly have a high degree of skill in a specific technical job or professional arena. That says very little about what your EQ may be. I think you get the point that you are responsible for training up and developing your own EQ, regardless of training classes that you may attend. In one ear and out the other sorts of training seminars do nothing to develop your EQ. They do nothing to develop your awareness of self, of your feelings, of your behaviors and reactivities. They do nothing to help you make needed change. You have to put in the time yourself. As stated by the Center for Creative Leadership in the quote at the beginning of the chapter, far too many people lose their jobs or simply don't get ahead in a chosen career because of their lack of EQ. What is more, a large proportion of those individuals remain in denial or ignorance, which nowadays should not be a permitted excuse, about their low EQ. The information is now out there in abundance, so denial that there is any problem or excuses that you don't know how to train up just don't cut it anymore. You have to take responsibility for this aspect not only of your workforce skills, but for your ability to be effective in interpersonal situations of all kinds, both professional and personal. Be your own EQ doctor. As we saw with Peter and his experience with anger, humans with uncontrolled emotions can be quite dangerous to each other. When we do not take responsibility, or we are not aware that we even have personal control, we are a threatening being. Without control over our feelings, the behaviors they drive, our thinking, and our mental pictures, we can be a danger to ourselves and to others. And there is no reason for it. What I have not yet mentioned in these pages is that it is not only the unwanted or unpleasant feelings which you can do with the exercises on developing your EQ. Any persistent feeling or behavior, negative or not, qualifies. Perhaps you are overly courageous to the point of recklessness, a sort of extreme sport spontaneity where you leap before you think. Courage is ordinarily a lighter feeling, but it plays against you. Do the exercises to let go of your reckless courage feelings. Do the exercises to let go of mental pictures that the feelings stir up for you. Maybe you have lust for things that you have not identified as harmful to you. Do the releasing exercises for the feeling of lust just to see what happens. Craving and lust may not seem like dangerous feelings unless they destroy your health by leading you to overeating. Craving and lust to spend may not seem dangerous unless they destroy your finances and put you and your loved ones in the street from your overspending or bankruptcy. You might be the one that interrupts all speakers and all conversations to speak your piece or to be humorous. Not dangerous, you say? Maybe it is to your career. Release the lust to interrupt and see what happens. In other words, be aware of what your ordinary mind will judge as unpleasant or not. Sometimes you will discover that your noisy mind works against you and against your best interests. You will start to see how the mind is not always your ally. This said, you will discover as you let go of the strongly unpleasant feelings and come into some control of them that your quiet, peaceful, and otherwise positive and loving feelings are starting to shine forth all on their own. When this happens for people, they are a bit surprised. They are under the impression that they need to reprogram themselves somehow for the positive, loving feelings. Not so. They were there all along underneath the negative, unpleasant feelings and pictures. This is why most EQ exercises focus on the unpleasant feelings. Once those unpleasant, destructive, or sabotaging feelings and mental pictures are gone, the behaviors that were formerly driven by them can no longer materialize. What does materialize is an ability to think better, reason, and analyze more clearly. You start to use your natural creativity to solve problems or to manage crises and dramas that other people or circumstances bring to you. You start to feel a greater self-possession, self-confidence, and a better big-picture view of circumstances. You always had this quiet ability. It was just hidden under sabotaging, heavy, or unpleasant feelings and pictures. You must take personal responsibility for the feelings you have and for your reactions and behaviors that are triggered by them. It is 100% possible to choose the feelings that you express. You have exercises below on how to achieve that. Attitude and perspective. How you feel is a decision that you make. How you express any of your feelings is likewise a personal decision. Decision-making is within your control, and you have more and more control as your EQ levels grow. When you develop your EQ ability to consciously decide which feeling you will express, you are able to not only manage feelings that spontaneously arise, and that may be sabotaging to you, but you can shift from one feeling to another at will. It is a matter of shifting your attitude and perspective. Exercises. 1. Opposites exercise. This is an awareness exercise to assist you in making a shift in your attitude and perspective. This is a good skill to have in times when your knee-jerk feelings are trying to control the circumstances. Do this when you are alone. Go back to your printout or master chart of feelings. Quietly, slowly read aloud each word on the chart. As you read, pause and bring your inner attention to your physical body. Notice which word or words brings a physical cramping or clutching in your throat, chest, or gut. Do the body-based release until the tightness is gone. What is the antonym or opposite of that feeling word? For instance, the opposite of fear is courage. The antonym of sad is happy. As you state the opposite feeling word to yourself, do you also get that clutching in your throat, chest, or gut? If yes, do the body-based release until the tightness is gone. Then go to the next feeling word on the list and repeat this process. Do this for every word that you read that gives you a cramping or tightness in your body. Make a separate list of feeling words you reacted to. Also note the antonym or opposite feeling word next to it. 2. Shifting. This exercise is a continuation of the prior one. You will need your list of opposite feeling words. Let's say you reacted to fear, whose antonym is courage. Your job in this exercise is to consciously choose courage. Decide to experience courageousness in your body. The emotions you feel are a personal decision. You are responsible for each of your decisions. You can choose which decisions to act on or not. Wouldn't you agree? In your mind's and your body's memory, decide to feel fear right now. Remember a situation that stirred up some fear in you. Feel the cramping, tightness in your throat, chest, or tummy. Just make the decision to feel it and what your body does. Now make the opposite decision. Decide to experience courage in your body. You might throw your shoulders back and lift your chin, sit or stand straighter and taller. You might remember a time when you acted from courage as opposed to reacting from fear or panic. Decide to feel courage in your body. Go back and forth between fear and courage several times. Do this until you experience each feeling palpably in your body on demand. Notice how your body shifts its positions. Notice how your body feels differently with each opposite feeling. Now do the same back and forth exercise with a different pair of feelings from your list, or try the exercise again with any of these pairs. Sadness, happiness, nervousness, calm, outrage, acceptance. Do you see how you can choose to feel sad or choose to feel happy? It is totally within your control. Keep practicing. Choose all the heavy feelings that you find recurring in yourself. Identify their opposites and choose to experience their lighter, more positive opposite more frequently. Practice this in real-life situations. Just pause as you take in the circumstances and consciously shift from, say, aggravation to acceptance, and so on. Don't react from the initial feeling. Act from the new perspective. In fact, you might discover that all you need to do is to choose to act from calm. It helps you think more clearly, speak and act with greater understanding and compassion. Before EQ, after EQ. Marion tested with a high IQ, but her low EQ was holding her back in her career. She'd landed a satisfying, well-paid job in her competitive profession. However, She was always passed over when it came time for others to listen to her ideas in brainstorming sessions with colleagues, and she would never put her foot down and demand to have her say. Also, when any client said no, she was at a loss to come up with any ideas to turn him around, until 2 hours later in the quiet of her office. Lost opportunities. A comment by a close friend led her to studying and developing her own EQ. She did the very exercises in this book. Some emotions that she discovered in herself were quite a shock, but she worked hard on them. She did the letting go and shifting perspective exercises relentlessly. She developed more courage and confidence by choosing those feelings. Finally, one day in yet another brainstorming session, she simply raised her hand, stood up with resolve, and started speaking with a strong, confident voice. For a few seconds, 1 or 2 colleagues spoke over her. Then they were shushed by the boss. Marion's ideas were met with enthusiasm by all. She was off and running in a whole new direction, fueled by her higher EQ. Chapter 4. Improve all your interactions with EQ. Knowing others and knowing oneself, in 100 battles no danger. Not knowing the other and knowing oneself, 1 victory for 1 loss. Not knowing the other and not knowing oneself, in every battle certain defeat. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Human interactions are smooth or bumpy based on your interpersonal skills. If, in your workplace job, you always feel like you're putting out fires started by rocky relationships, misunderstandings, and rough interactions amongst various coworkers, then you'd better look to EQ training as a better solution. Gain back the time that you used to spend dealing with interpersonal drama to do real, productive, profit-generating work. It is extraordinarily helpful to have entire groups of people in the workplace learn how to develop their own EQ in a formalized way. Before you get your company to take that step, though, there is more you can do on your own. Make your own life easier by developing your awareness of other people's emotions, reactions, behaviors, and adapt your own to them. Because you are now emotionally more self-aware, you are more emotionally flexible than before. Use that newfound flexibility to be the bigger person, so to speak. Adapt to others' needs by bending your own just a bit. If this sounds a little drastic, it really isn't. Rest assured it is about awareness plus flexibility. This is definitely within your reach. When you make a big deal of applying your high emotional intelligence in home and work settings, life is fun, loving, creative, and harmonious. Even the American National Institutes of Health have long been interested in EQ and studied the relationship, among others, between high and low emotional intelligence and successful marriages. Marriage partner, business partner, family member, staff member, we are just speaking of relationships. They are fraught with feelings and the behaviors driven by them. As you have developed awareness of your own feelings, reactions, and behaviors, your EQ has necessarily improved. Now it is time to observe how other people's emotions and feelings lead them to act and react as they do. All you are doing is using your understanding of emotions and how they drive behavior to predict or estimate how others will act in workplace or home life situations. You have now had practice identifying, acknowledging, and somewhat controlling your own emotions prior to speaking or acting. It should now be a bit easier to guess where other people are coming from in terms of emotions, reactivity, and behaviors. They are just like you in that they operate based on feelings. Adapt. Don't judge. With very little observation, you might immediately see an individual's dominant emotions. You might even notice a pattern of behavior in that person. Make no comment. Perhaps that individual does not realize he has those traits. Don't be surprised that he has not developed self-awareness. Since your EQ is rising, it is your job to make the greater effort in social interactions with this type of individual. This is not about judging others in any way. Make no mistake, you must be a neutral observer, making no comment or judgment for or against that person. You are using the knowledge you have just gained about the individual to understand how you yourself now need to adapt to get along in this conversation or interaction with him. Your knowledge of emotions and how they drive our behaviors is about learning, through observation, what makes others tick. This gives you an edge in successfully communicating and interacting with them. You have some exercises and tips in this chapter to help you improve your observation powers. Exercises. Alongside information about taking personal responsibility for your feelings, words, and behaviors, do what many high EQ parents do. Teach your kids how to do some of this work. It is guaranteed to make their own relationships happier, in the home, in school, and out in the world. By the way, some progressive schools are beginning to teach EQ tools in the classroom. 1. This exercise is about helping your children understand that feelings are natural, but that they also have control over them. Help your children monitor and control their feelings and make better choices. When you see your child expressing some feeling, even though it is clear which feeling to you, stop. Don't act or react in your pre-EQ way. Pause and find out from your child what's going on first. Ask your child, "Are you a little frustrated right now, or is something else going on?" Or, among the lighter feelings you notice, you may ask, "It seems like you're feeling very happy. Is that true?" And then just listen. That's the first step with this exercise. It brings to your child's attention that you have good feeling awareness. You are no longer acting like the bossy dad or rushed mom. It shows that you are concerned about your child's well-being. Step 2 of this exercise is to tell your child outright that you are learning how to let go of your own unwanted feelings. Just do a mental picture or a body-based release and ask your child if he noticed you doing anything. Of course, he won't see you doing anything. And that's the point you are making with the child. He too can do this exercise anywhere when he needs to. Step 3 is to sit down when your child feels overwhelmed with some emotion or another from an unpleasant circumstance and just walk him through the body-based release. Anyone can do it, as you know. Demonstrate to your child that he can too. Show that you are someone who can support others. Find out what they need and give it to them when possible. Create environments for them to thrive. Develop their strengths. 2. A workplace exercise that you can do, whether you are a supervisor, owner, or an employee on a team, is the one that might have helped Marion. But she obviously did not have a manager expressing a strong EQ, did she? Be that high EQ manager for the Marion types of your workplace. Without me telling you how to do it, sit down with pen and paper and brainstorm how you would assist someone like Marion to express herself more confidently in those group settings. Remember that you do not want to trample other people's feelings either. So, for instance, you would never just tell the other members of the group to shut up. That is not a high EQ approach. Before EQ, after EQ. Sean and his wife learned some of these exercises in a workplace seminar. Their youngest son, aged 6, was being bullied in school. It was a hard kindergarten year for him. Having developed their own awareness and EQ, they sensed their son was troubled and coaxed out the reason. Every evening at bedtime, Sean sat with his son and did a body-based release of his son's feelings about the matter. The child identified fear as the dominant feeling. They did this letting go quietly together every evening. The child saw the fear as black, icky smoke pouring out of the opening he'd made in his chest. By the end of the second week, Sean was told by his son, "Dad, I don't have any fear left. Could you tell me a bedtime story instead? Even children can develop greater EQ. Chapter 5. EQ, Business and Leadership. EQ has been a buzzword for many years now in the world of business. There is an excellent reason for that. Salespeople were probably the earliest adopters. Salespeople with a highly developed EQ sell more goods and services and get more repeat business. So naturally, others in the world of business want some of that edge too. Business. All of us in any people business reap great benefit from developing our EQ. When the boss has solid EQ and has trained all staff in developing their own, lots of things shift for the good. Here are some ways EQ makes work life easier, not to mention more fun, more profitable, less stressful, and tiring. Business people of all professions and positions who have a high EQ have more extensive and productive networks, and more help flows in when they need it. Dealing with any high EQ individual in the workplace is always more relaxing, friendly, and harmonious. Resolution of conflict amongst individuals, staff, or outsiders with developed EQ is quiet and quick. Customers sense that things in your company are harmonious, honest, and happy, and prefer doing business and repeat or referral business with you. They feel good when dealing with you. If all this sounds like a world of work that you would prefer to evolve in every day, EQ is something you need to develop, use, and offer as training to all of your employees. Nobody likes to work for a manager or boss who can't control his temper, his moods, or his words. A well-known statistic in the world of human resource management is that the majority of individuals leaving any job do so to get away from a poor supervisor or manager. In other words, a poor leader with little to no EQ. Leadership. A leader is simply any individual possessing a number of qualities that persuade others to follow them. Not every executive in corporations is a leader. Not every supervisor managing dozens of individuals in a department is a leader either. Leadership is not a job title. It is a set of personality traits and behaviors. As I've mentioned elsewhere, corporations and businesses are now looking for more people with high EQ because those individuals tend to be natural leaders. They get more done, have a better bottom line result year after year, and less staff turnover on their teams. What defines a leader? A person with a developed emotional intelligence, of course. Here's why. High EQ pushes you quite naturally to listening more actively and attentively to other individuals. This is a good way to collect more information and data, which in turn helps decision-making. A developed EQ pushes you quite naturally to helping other individuals thrive, grow, and express themselves. People working for or with you love you for this. A strong EQ individual does not react, but assesses the emotional and factual data before him so that he can act in an effective manner. That makes this emotionally savvy individual very adaptable to a variety of circumstances and personalities. A high EQ individual in a management role understands what it takes to develop teams and to assign work to individuals in it, so that everyone thrives and contributes from their strengths. A high EQ manager will not only be a role model to his people, but invest in them in all senses of that term. An individual working on his EQ knows when it is time to regroup and when it is time to take a risk. A high EQ person is very likely to be goal-oriented for himself and to understand how to help others set goals that are satisfying and achievable. Defining a high EQ individual is essentially defining a leader. This is why more and more businesses and corporations want to hire more and more high EQ staff, managers, and executives. Exercises. 1. Reaction or action. We have said it before in these pages, but now it is time to focus your budding EQ skills on reaction versus action. In this exercise, to build your awareness, you will be watching how other individuals either react from knee-jerk emotional push or act after pausing and reflecting. When you are out shopping, watch how parents interact with their children, teens interact with each other, adult couples or pairs of friends interact with each other, sales personnel interact or fail to with customers. Customers feel about sales personnel. Make mental notes about your observations. What are your personal judgments or feelings about what you are seeing? Make note of those, and if you need to do a body-based release as you observe, do so. 2. The second exercise is quite similar. Choose an event in which you do not need to participate very much. Watch how the official leader directs proceedings. Why is the person good or poor at it? Is there an unofficial, self-appointed leader, and how do you know? The leader goes about obtaining full participation or failing to. Participants act during the meeting, bored, frustrated, impatient, spaced out, etc. As an individual with developed EQ, how would you conduct this same meeting? As a high EQ person, how would you participate in such a meeting or event? Don't make anyone wrong. That's not the exercise. Observe how others operate and what you would do differently in their shoes, if anything. What would you imitate? Before EQ, after EQ. Cameron was a staff member of a marketing team in a medium-sized company. She was quite frustrated by one person's domination of all of their creative meetings. She was frustrated that even the team leader caved in and let this other individual dominate. No one else got to express their creative opinions on anything. She had heard about and worked a bit on her EQ and how to build self-confidence and thought she'd give her new knowledge a try at the next meeting. The team leader opened the meeting, and the overbearing individual interrupted and started stating his case. Cameron gently raised her hand, immediately stood up, and addressed the team leader specifically by looking him straight in the eyes. She said something like this: "I understand that Joe has many good ideas, but you are forgetting that there are 6 other people in the room, and we have many good ideas as well. I would love to give you 2 ideas for last week's topic and 3 ideas for this morning's topic if Joe would give me the floor for 6 minutes. Do you agree, boss?" She then jumped right into her ideas. In a sense, she put her boss on the spot. Maybe that's what was needed, because every time Joe tried to intervene, the boss waved him quiet. On the strength of Cameron's courage, 2 other people during that same meeting made good contributions that were noted by all. Cameron shifted the perspective of the entire team at that meeting. Joe got a word or 2 in and didn't feel left out. Cameron's boss had an EQ light bulb go off for himself that day. He realized that he had been a nonchalant, hands-off boss and that it obviously wasn't working. From that day forward, he made sure that everyone had the floor in those meetings, and he listened actively when anyone spoke. After 4 months of gentle, conscious shifting of his people management style, his team's results shifted for the better, too. And after a year, top brass wanted to know his secrets for getting such great team performance. Cameron was not by far the sole beneficiary of her daring that day in the meeting. A growing number of organizations are now convinced that people's ability to understand and to manage their emotions improves their performance, their collaboration with colleagues, and their interaction with customers. Fast Company. Conclusion. Emotional intelligence is the ability to sense, understand, and effectively apply the power and acumen of emotions as a source of human energy, information, connection, and influence. Robert K. Cooper, Ph.D. Life is a fabulous roller coaster ride during which we cannot always choose what happens to us. We can, however, choose how we react to it. We can be aware of the role feelings can play. We have direct control of our feelings, our attitude, and our perspective on events of life and living. We can help others be in better control, too. You can read Daniel Goleman's 1995 book, Emotional Intelligence, but these 5 points sum up what emotional intelligence is according to him. 1. Self-awareness. 2. Self-regulation. 3. Self or internal motivation. 4. Empathy. 5. Social skills. We looked at emotional self-awareness in the first chapter. We examined how to develop more of it. Jean acquired new awareness about herself and made beneficial changes. Peter, on the other hand, was ready to let go of a destructive feeling he had long been aware of. His need was for an effective method to do so. Self-regulation is all about controlling your body's behaviors and the words coming out of your mouth through conscious decisions. It is about biting your tongue and examining your feelings and those of people you're interacting with before speaking. In a leadership role, it is about positioning your approach before speaking or acting. You position yourself in relation to your observations of others and their needs. Craig was relieved to get his life back, to take back control from fearsome mental pictures and the damaging feelings they contained. Self-motivation can be multifaceted. For our purposes, it's really 2 things. First, it is understanding why you're involved in this particular interaction and what you wish to gain or achieve from it. It is also about determining if the others agree with you. Second, it is about being a lifelong, self-motivated learner, someone who is teachable. Be someone willing to throw out old or false information and take in what's new and true. Marion took her personal power back by learning what was necessary to be more effective in her chosen professional roles. Empathy is connection, and it comes into play when you pause for a moment of self-regulation and analysis of the situation. You will not flail your arms around and shout with an excited voice when you are interacting with a shy wallflower. That is not conducive to a good connection with that individual. You allow yourself to see the circumstances through the other person's eyes. Only then do you make your decision. Cameron's boss, who had lost his connection with his team, took charge of himself, developed more empathy and connectivity. His management style shifted to everyone's benefit. Social skills are simply all about effective communication. When someone says that Mr. Brown has no social skills, what they really mean is he has a low or no EQ. Leaders excel at social skills, particularly conflict resolution, ability to critique and praise others effectively, remember important information about people, and so on. Sean's son got more comfortable around those who bullied him by learning that feelings are not forever. Do the exercises in these pages. Be watchful. Bite your tongue. This is all a great start at developing more emotional intelligence. Remember that EQ is quite different from IQ. Getting along in a workplace environment is not about IQ so much as your application of EQ. Developing more EQ for yourself is a question of personal study, observation, and attention. Again, do the experiential exercises. Make up others that serve your needs. Go to EQ seminar training. Be watchful of your reactivity to other people's comments and behaviors, and bite your tongue before you speak. That will give you a few seconds to reflect on the emotions and feelings at play in this current interaction. Not all highly emotional intelligent individuals have a leadership job title or a large sphere of influence, but they are the ones people prefer to follow. All our most revered leaders have high EQs if you examine their personalities and behaviors closely. Be that leader.